Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Multifamily Monday. My name is Jesse Greer, and I'm the Vice President of Multifamily and Investments here at Avis & Young in Northern Nevada. And today I have a very special guest with me. You know, ironically, Suzy, we did this video just about 2 weeks ago, and here we are doing it again because of so much change that's going on, right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, we are, unfortunately. So as I was saying, I have Suzy Vasquez, the Executive Director for the Nevada State Apartment Association, joining us today to talk about two very critical items that have just occurred, especially as it pertains to the multifamily industry. And that has to do locally with Directive 31 and nationally with the CDC public health emergency to halt residential evictions until December 31st, 2020. But before we jump into that, Suzy, I'd love to get a little bit more about you and a little bit more about the Nevada State Apartment Association so our viewers understand, you know, what it is that you do and how you help apartment owners.
Thank you. Yes, so we represent property owners and managers across the state of Nevada. Our membership is currently at 60% of all units in the state. So we have a pretty broad voice, and obviously we represent a broad number and different types of apartment communities. And we offer education, and primarily right now, it seems to be advocacy on behalf of landlords.
Absolutely. Now, in conjunction with the Nevada State Apartment Association, you guys work with Karsaz Law as well. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Correct. They're our legal counsel. We actually co-locate with them, which is really nice because I can just run down the hall and get information rather quickly. So Karsaz Law is our legal counsel. Yes.
Well, fantastic. Well, it's good to have legal counsel on board because with all these directives coming out, it's just hard to really balance what's going on and really, you know, where the line is drawn when it comes to your rights as an apartment owner and more so as an apartment tenant as well. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to more so focus on apartment ownership. So as that being said, let's talk about locally what the new directive, which is Directive September 1st, what that means for the apartment community.
So it's he allowed the other two directives to expire, and it's only Directive 31 that's in play right now. It does continue to protect renters due to non-payment. However, it did open up the ability for us to charge late fees, which there is a cap as of 2019. And then it also—
And what is that cap?
10%.
Okay.
10%, you can only charge 10% in late fees. And then it also opened up the ability to file no-cause evictions and holdover evictions. So those whose leases have expired, it is possible to file an eviction in those instances.
So why do you suppose that Governor Sisolak extended the extension on evictions for, was it another 45 days until October 14th? What were, because I know there's a couple key points that were put down in what you sent out earlier and the rationale why. Can you explain that for us a little bit, please?
Given the challenges that Dieter, and as well as not really challenges, but the timing of the rent assistance programs in Nevada, the rollout was pretty not recent, so they haven't been able to get through the bulk of those applications. So understandably so, as we continue to battle with Dieter issues, rent assistance, he wanted the ability to get rent assistance out to the majority of Nevadans that had applied versus a small number. So it did make sense to extend the eviction moratorium to continue to protect those that were not impacted. I think was a little irresponsible on his part. But we are able to, again, move forward with no-cause evictions and the holdover evictions. So we were able to kind of move forward on some, but not on others, and understandably so, for the ones that we can't move forward on.
So it sounds like a portion of that was because of the delay of Dieter, like you said, for unemployment claims that are still being processed and filed, and having those individuals have access to those funds. Now, you mentioned another thing as well as it pertained to different type of rental assistance programs. I heard, you know, they're kind of off to a rocky start on those rental assistance programs. And in fact, in Las Vegas, they had to pull back on one of them because of implementation issues. But, you know, can you talk to us about really how much funding does the state have how is that allocated? And really, is that just kind of a Band-Aid on what we consider a major wound, just postponing, I guess, the inevitable?
Yes, yes, and yes. So the rent assistance program kind of came up really quickly and fast. Fortunately, the state is using programs that are already in place. In Northern Nevada, they're using the Nevada Housing Authority. And then in Southern Nevada, there's a number of different agencies and nonprofits that already have a process in place. I think Reno took a little bit longer to implement than Southern Nevada, but they're doing really great right now and getting through all of those. I know that both parts of the state are looking at ways to expedite those applications. So I know also the city of Reno and the city of Sparks have further funded the Northern Nevada Rent Assistance Fund. Clark County and Southern Nevada, I believe, have exhausted their funds. They did reopen the applications up for a short period of time. And I know if you log into the, or look at their website, I think they are still accepting applications, or they still have those phone numbers up to call, because they are still able to assist a small amount of people. But I do know that down in the South, funds are short. Up in the North, we're still kind of A-okay. But overall, it's going to be able to help a lot of households, but obviously not all.
So Suzy, real quick, in talking about those different types of programs through the Nevada Housing Agency, through Reno and Sparks, do you have by chance the agency that an apartment owner can reach out to on behalf of their tenants? Ultimately, you know, I'd prefer that they reach out to you guys if need be and be a part of the Nevada Apartment Association, because I reach out directly. How do that? Do you know the sites or the agencies to go to?
Sure. All of the Northern Nevada rent assistance is being filtered through Reno Housing Authority. So you can reach out to the Reno Housing Authority. I heard her speak, I believe, at the Reno City Council recently. And again, they're trying to get through the applications as quickly as possible and seem to be getting through them. But again, I think they received 18,000 inquiries, but not a whole lot of applications. People are still in the process of getting their documentation together and being able to submit that. So it's kind of still in the early stages, even though the program's been up for a month, but definitely moving in the right direction.
Got it. Now, we talked about one of the reasons why Governor Sisolak decided to extend the moratorium on evictions for financial payments. Another one was because of the legal systems. Now, I was under the impression that they're trying to really ramp up the legal systems for what they're anticipating is potentially a wave of evictions in the coming months. Is that the case as well?
In Washoe County, I think that they're fairly prepared for the wave of evictions that are coming. It's not going to be a tsunami by any way, shape, or form. But I think we are looking at a wave, obviously, because courts have been closed for 6 months. So I think that they're in a position to be able to take care of the evictions that will be filed. Right now, I think we're just trying to sort out social distancing and access to the courts. So I think those details are close to being sorted out and finalized. So I don't think that there will be an issue, but then there's the mediation program that is, I think, causing some delay as well.
So that's a good point that you brought up. It's in reference to, I believe, SB 1. So it provides that eviction proceedings pursuant to the act may be stayed for no more than 30 days. To facilitate the implementation of the Alternative Resolution Dispute Program. That's a lot going on right there. But basically, what you're referencing is that in order to evict someone for financial purposes due to COVID, they actually have to go through a mediation program, which can prolong the eviction another 30 days. Is that correct?
As it stands now, I believe it's still voluntary. I don't believe it's a mandatory program. However, the city of Reno recently passed their own mediation program, and the city of Sparks, I think, is scheduled to vote on that issue, or creating their own mediation program on next week's city council meeting. So I don't know, I've reached out to see if I can get meetings with both city councils to see what the reasoning is behind creating their own when the state is kind of in the final stages of creating theirs. So I just don't know how all of them will integrate and whether it'll cause confusion because, you know, obviously the Supreme Court may have more say than a local judge. So still trying to figure out the kind of details on those programs.
Well, there's definitely a lot of moving parts still. And, you know, it's interesting when you look at, and I think there could be some misconceptions to the extension of the evictions. And I appreciate you really expanding upon that, because what people need to realize is that the extension is only just for non-payment, right? And it's due specifically to COVID-related reasons. So what's interesting, now let's take that step up to the federal level, and let's talk about how on the same day, September 1st, the administration, via an order filed by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the Federal Register, right, as a public health emergency, halted all evictions until December 31st. Now, is that all evictions for anyone that is an owner of a home or a tenant in a multifamily? What does that mean? Because the dates, you know, overlap basically from the local directive.
So I think the point or the areas that they were trying to cover are places that didn't have an eviction moratorium in place. And still lots of confusion in those areas. Whether or not the CDC has the authority to enforce an order like that is still questionable, I believe. But as going through the CDC order, I think we've been able to come to a point where it does cover people based on non-payment of rent. You do have to sign a declaration. The tenant has to sign a declaration and turn that into their landlord. But there are still areas where evictions can proceed. And obviously for criminal activity, damage to the unit or the community, violating any building code, health ordinances or similar regulations related to health and safety. And then finally, if you're violating any other contractual obligation. So in Nevada, the 30-day no cause and the holdover eviction would still be able to proceed. Now this is preliminary interpretation. So I believe those would still be able to continue. So essentially it doesn't really impact Directive 31, but it may extend the protections Directive 31 currently has in place until December 31st, if certain, you know, hurdles are.
Yeah, I think that the tough part is what everyone's becoming to realize is that this is definitely a, you know, political hot button, right? So unfortunately, I feel as if you're absolutely right, you know, until the elections happen, until we have stability in the executive branch, I do feel like the evictions will be something that will continue to be extended or adjusted accordingly until that event. But that's just speculation from my perspective. You know, from those that you talk to, do they kind of feel the same way?
I think everyone's kind of looking forward to November, the beginning of November. Again, how long it takes to determine who the president is still in play. But I think a lot of things, everyone is on the same page and thinking that a lot of this will be resolved by November. You know, and I do want to point out that Reno, Sparks, that area, the residents have really prioritized rent, and they've really made a huge effort in ensuring that they continue to maintain a roof over their homes. And landlords have been extending payment arrangements. It's been working beautifully as far as, you know, landlord and tenants coming together and being able to move forward. Your delinquency rate is lower than it is in Southern Nevada. And I think that's in part because Reno has been able to kind of diversify away from, you know, primarily a hospitality type of industry city. So Reno Sparks is in a way different place than Southern Nevada, but obviously Governor Sisolak has to look at it as a whole. But you guys opened your borders,
you know,
so, hey, we're
right.
You know, Sparks.
Well, you know, it's interesting, and I'm going to attempt to share my screen here and see if this works. So bear with me 1 second. Let me see here. Let me go to, there it is right there. and then share that. Suzy, can you see that by chance?
Yes.
All right, so this is interesting right here. The National Multi-Housing Council, which is the national organization on behalf of apartments that really, politic on their behalf, put together a rent tracker, which I found pretty fascinating myself. Now, what's unique about it is, and you can go to the nmhc.org to view this yourself and go to the rent payment tracker, but basically they're tracking about 11.5 million units. And as such, what they've done is they broke it down by the first two, I believe the 6, as you can see right here, the 13th, and of course, okay, so the 13th, the 20th, and the 27th, and then end of month, right? So what we're starting to see is a little bit of a decline on a full month end on those that are actually showing payments down to 76.4%, which is the lowest since May, right? And you can see as well from the different color coordinations how, it's dropped off from the 6th to the 13th to the 20th. I mean, still for the overall month, we're at 94.5%. But you are starting to see that 1st through 6th delinquency start to rise. And what's unique about this is that basically, what they're tracking is what we consider a lot of Class A apartment communities, right? Those that can work from home, those that have the opportunity to still get a paycheck while working at the house. And really, I think a lot of the communities that aren't represented are maybe some of the, B, B minus, C communities, and even those different, what I have to say, property management companies that are fairly large that manage those, but that don't participate in this. So when you look at that, do you think that's almost the same nationally as we're seeing locally in Nevada, where a lot of the Class A, where those individuals that could afford to work out of the house and get paid to do so are still making rent, but maybe some of the B to C communities are really getting hit hard? I mean, what are you seeing?
Well, from NMHC, which actually our National Apartment Association utilizes them as their advocacy group as well. We lean on them a lot on, kind of helping us attack or address, I guess is the right word. We're not attacking it, but addressing a lot of our concerns within housing. And they actually did a great job at compiling, this 11.5 million units. And it actually represents more, not necessarily the A, but more of the large apartment owners, I think is what you can kind of away from the companies, because it's all the major property management firms that we use software-wise to manage our properties. So I think what it's leaving out is the mom and pops for sure. But in looking at that monthly data every single month, Nevada is in line with what they're reporting as well. So Reno, again, amazing considering that there are so many mom and pop landlords in the Reno area compared to, Southern Nevada. So it is surprising that they actually stay a little bit ahead of what the NMHC is reporting month after month in collections, or at least attempts to pay rent. So it does track rent payments, but just the payment. It doesn't know whether it's in full, whether it's a payment arrangement payment. It's just a payment was made.
And even they track partial payments and consider that as well. So you got to really dive into the details, and you're absolutely right. And it's amazing really what Northern Nevada is. And you're absolutely right. We break it down by 5 to 20 units, 21 to 79, and 80 and above. And we track 1,100 properties that are in Northern Nevada from Reno, Sparks, Carson City, Fernley, Fallon. And what's amazing is by properties, not by units, but by properties, 5 to 20 units consist of almost 65% of the multifamily inventory in Northern Nevada. While in Las Vegas, it's reversed. About 65% of the inventory is 80 units and above. So it's fascinating. It's fascinating the dichotomy of the two markets and how different they really are. But on that note, Suzy, I really appreciate your feedback, and I think we covered quite a bit of information, and hopefully someone's able to get some tidbit of information about this to help them with their property and help them with their tenants. I know you have a big database of individuals that you work with for multifamily owners, but if you are a multifamily owner and you're not part of the Nevada State Apartment Association, you need to be. So Suzy, how can they be if they want to be?
They can reach out to our website, nvsaa.org, or they can send me an email, director@nvsaa.org.
Fantastic. Well, Suzy, I'm assuming that we're going to have some more conversations down the road as things really start to unwind and we figure out what's going to happen with all these directives, both locally and, federally. So once again, I appreciate your time today. I appreciate all of your feedback, and I look forward to having you on again soon.
Thank you so much. It was fun. Great. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.